we are back on It Takes a Village. I am Jenny Schultz-Thomas, Senior Minister here at Countryside Community Church, and I am joined by my friend Ryan Wilkins. Ryan, welcome.
Thank you, Jenny. I appreciate you having me.
Oh, this is so fun. I love these conversations. Lately, we've been talking on It Takes a Village with community leaders, learning more about our local community, the needs facing all of us, the beauty of weaving our stories together, and how powerful it is to be part of co-creating this community that we love. So I'm glad you're here to join us. Friends, Ryan is a wonderful human being. I'm going to let him say so much more than I will right now, but I want you to hear that this man has been described as a man of many talents, right? Lawyer, writer, rapper, and we're going to have to get to that, Ryan.
You bet.
Backwards talker, right? Obviously dad extraordinaire and community member, all the things. Ryan, if you were asked, kind of in one sentence, like at a dinner party, to introduce yourself, how would you do that?
I would have to start with dad. And it wasn't always that way. I think that for most of my early adulthood, I was pretty career obsessed, with where I was and where I was going. And I would always say that, being a good husband, being a good dad were my priorities. But I don't know that my time and my mental bandwidth would have supported that. Okay. So a few years ago, I was laid off really unexpectedly. And it totally knocked me on my feet in terms of where I thought I was going career-wise. And that was really hard. It kind of hit me and hit my identity, and my image of myself, and I'm just very, to a fault, future-oriented in that way. But it was the best thing because it completely changed the way I prioritize my time and changed the way I interact with my girls and my wife. So yeah, dad first. Long way of answering a short question.
And you have two daughters.
I do. I have a 10-year-old named Poppy and an 8-year-old named Nina.
Awesome. And Jenny, of course, is your amazing wife.
Yeah.
So dad first, that's a beautiful way of even, I would say so many others, like friends, people who know you, define you as this funny and humble person. And I think, so often we hope that we are, right? Humble, and we have this, but sometimes it takes one of those really intense experiences in our lives to remind us of the things that matter the most. And it sounds like obviously your family is super important to you.
Absolutely.
Some of the reasons that I think our community needs more leaders like Ryan Wilkins is that we don't always give ourselves the credit to be our best selves, right? When we talk about belonging, so often we're kind of given roles or, you're a lawyer, you're a dad, you're a preacher, you're a sister, you're a mom. Those kinds of things kind of define parts of our lives, but we're so much more than just the one thing, right? Especially with our careers,
right?
As you're saying. So as you've responded from, that intense experience, where are you right now? Where in community do people find you? What are your passions and interests? How do you show up in the world?
Yeah, I think that's something I'm always evaluating. The humility part is easy because I never really thought that much of myself growing up. I was always really small for my age. I was smart and I was funny, but that was mostly a coping mechanism to not get beat up by bullies and stuff like that.
Right.
The backwards talking thing was a random talent I developed. It was the only way I could think of to get girls to talk to me in high school was by entertaining them with stupid human tricks. So that part came really easily. And honestly, a lot of that was from my mom. My mom always modeled goodness to everyone, whether you were the CEO of a Fortune 500 company or the person who shined his or her shoes. I always saw and really believed that people had inherent worth. So that part and that caring part comes really easy. I don't always know what my place is in the community. I've never really considered myself a super political person. I have had some really cool leadership opportunities, but sometimes they've arisen really randomly. Yeah. So sometimes there's not much of a plan to it. I've had long phases for years where I didn't really think there was any obvious way that I could, maybe some of that was laziness or lack of creativity or inspiration, but there have been times for long periods where I was just a regular community member, helping on maybe boards of directors, helping with some volunteerism, but not really trying to do anything big or bold. And then there have been other times where I felt like I needed to be a part of that. So last year, around the last year's presidential election cycle, as most people around here know, there was a scenario in which Omaha and our blue dot could have decided the presidential election. Right. I mean, it was absolutely possible that one electoral vote could have swayed things. So in that moment in time, I just thought of myself. I thought of my daughters and the type of world that I want them to have. And I just felt like, I don't know exactly what my place is, but it's not being quiet right now. Right. So I wanted to be able to tell them someday that while there was time, I did what I could to be a part of what I thought would be the right side of history. So that really inspired what became the Blue Dot Energy Group, our 16,000 members. Amazing. And I don't know where credit lies and don't really care that much about it. But in the last cycle, we were the only swing district that went for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. And that's something I have a lot of pride in, even though we won that battle and lost the war.
Oh, that's right. But I mean, I love how you're talking about, there's a time and place, right? For you to kind of look around and ask questions. Like all of us are, no matter who we are human underneath, right? We have different skin, but we are human. And sometimes the power of the human condition is lost, right? When there's despair or grief. And then other times you ask yourself a question. What do I want my daughters to look back on? And if they ask me, what did you do? Yeah. And that's enough. And you described yourself as a dad first. I think sometimes that can be the greatest strength and the superpower we have.
Yeah, I think that's well said. Like, I think a lot of times we have in our mind that a leader is someone who is always raising their hand. And I really feel like I thought that once, maybe in college or so. I thought that the way I could show I was a leader, it would be by doing everything that was possible to be done.
Well, UNL student body president, on the board of regents. I mean, you did do a lot of those things.
Right. And I think that I felt like over time, when I did those things, I felt like it was more about me than it was about the role and stewarding like the people that I was supposed to steward. So I spent a lot of time getting into everything I could, and then a lot of time trying to get back out of it and learn where do I actually play a role. And sometimes the best thing you can do as a leader is to be a follower and be willing to support someone else who's either better equipped or has the experience to, or just has an identified need that you can support, even if it's not standing in front of the group.
Yeah, that's very well said. So as you've looked at kind of the group, right, who's forming around the Blue Dot Energy Group and the wider community and locally, how do you see sort of that continuation of the community rallying, right? And whether if you're a leader who raised your hand or just someone who's wanting to put a toe in, how do you see that group or even just local individuals, our own, faith communities who are looking for ways to make a difference? Yeah. How do you see the energy growing, or is it people are despairing so much that they're paralyzed right now? I mean, what has your experience been in the last several months?
It's been in flux for sure. Personally, it's been hard. Personally, there's a lot of anxiety, a lot of trying to find where to place hope and what's reasonable for my expectations in terms of things like that, in terms of things that I hold dear, like human rights and decency and caring for each other. We had a big existential crisis after the election where it's just like, what is Blue Dot Energy now? We rallied around trying to win the Blue Dot, and we did that. But there's still a lot of hurt, obviously, among our group members. So I wrestled with that. We considered everything from just shutting down the group to become a political action committee and raise money and support candidates. I'm not really sure. So the things that I felt like we did well and the things that I was comfortable still leading was just information sharing, so everything from, helping people who are in need from hunger as SNAP benefits run out, to rallying around our immigrant communities who are hurting and scared of ICE and having safe places for information sharing and resource sharing. So at the bare minimum, it's that. And as an aside, just as a personal project, I've been really just trying to fight for joy in the places that we can. Yeah. So that is as simple as it sounds. I think what brings me joy, and maybe others will feel that too. So a couple weeks ago, we just rented out an arcade. Yeah.
I saw that. That looks so great.
A lot's not right in the world, but we can play. Galaga.
Exactly.
and maybe that'll be okay. And maybe for a couple hours, people will be able to set those fears and those anxieties aside and connect with each other in community. We're probably going to do a karaoke night just because I don't think anybody ever has a bad time doing karaoke. Nobody thinks they want to do karaoke, but once karaoke is happening, most people enjoy it.
That's right.
I went to a musical in Denver a few months ago called Anne Juliet, and it was really sweet, really fun. And they're coming to Omaha in March. So we bought 250 tickets for the group, and we're going to get as many people as we can there. So it's just kind of fighting for joy, community, and connection, and with the information sharing. But a lot of times it feels like a speck of sand on the beach.
For sure.
It sometimes feels hard to wrap our head around the daily news cycle and our fears. So at the very least, whether it's through online community and people posting and looking for care and mentorship online, or connections at arcades and karaoke bars.
That's right.
That's what we're fighting for right now.
That's beautiful. I mean, that's so much, it resonates with our sacred work in the world, right? That joy is a form of resistance, right? Knowing that individuals who have faced so many hardships over centuries, right, of dehumanization and loss of that sacred identity, finding a place to come together collectively, right, when somebody else's despair is overshadowing them, being invited to karaoke, you're really borrowing that joy from someone else. And it's really the one thing that no one can take from you.
Yeah.
Right. The connection, the human condition, we are really interconnected beyond what we see. Right. And so that energy and that divine love, right, really inspires us to then invite another person into the circle.
Yes.
I think that's a beautiful way of really describing this village, right? It takes a village to show up and play karaoke or to sing karaoke or play an arcade when really you just want to, sit down on your couch, and the hopelessness that you see in the world, right? Yeah. That so many people losing SNAP benefits. Well, what can I do? Right. What can I do alone? Well, probably nothing, but what can we do together? Well, joy, right, helps us even be able to take the next step in the work.
Right.
Our family likes to hike a lot and be in the natural world, mountains and beauty. And that's one of the things that we do, and we try to pass on to our children, right? When things are really hard, sometimes you just need to take a deep breath and step away, find your joy and be filled, and then you can get right back to it. But you're not alone in that, right? The promises of God, as we talk about in Faith Community, are ever present with us when only we take time to drink deeply, right? And to be renewed.
Right.
So that's a beautiful way. And of course, who doesn't want to play Pac-Man and Galaga and all the games of our past?
I think you're so right. And I think that the big picture can feel scary, but if we're able to try to focus on what's personal, even across political lines, like I have to remind myself often, because I feel a lot of anger politically right now.
Sure.
But I also have a neighbor across the street and I know who she voted for, and it wasn't who I voted for.
Right.
And she, and she makes treats for my daughters and puts out a cookie flag and every time she's ready for them to stop by. And it's just good and helpful to focus on the individual and remind ourselves of our shared humanity, even though there's all sorts of complicated and cultural reasons for the division right now. The more we can focus on the people, I think we're in a better place.
Yeah, I think, that's something that's ever present to us here at Countryside on the Tri-Faith Commons. The world really doesn't usually identify Christians, Muslims, and Jews as befriending and loving and being in relationship, especially within proximity, such that we are here. So it's a beautiful opportunity for us to be fully engaged in what is common among us rather than what's different. And almost every single time someone new comes into our community or is asking about the tri-faith, which is just differences of religious beliefs, right? Or maybe how we see food or how we engage with those cultural differences. We find that we are embodying the same really deep, profound truths. And those are compassion and empathy and kindness and loving neighbor. I think it's a privilege, right? When we have these relationships and we are able to, encounter difference, but then those barriers are dissolved, right? When you're sitting at table and you're sharing a meal or coffee or just a bad joke that someone's making, right? We realize that we have so much more power, right? To see and be seen than what the world, has superficially, tried to convince us is true.
Right.
The scarcity, of, it's easier to hate someone or it's easier to fear someone who's different. Well, those are so pervasive in our culture, right? That people and our children are fed those things, right? In different places. And so we have to work really hard to be intentional about creating and co-creating spaces where the opportunity to encounter someone who is different, and then to take the step where those barriers fall away. They're like melted into the cookie in your mouth, right? Because there's so much beauty in the human spirit when we open ourselves to that kind of interaction.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, that's been a critical part of my own journey. Like, I mean, I grew up in Omaha in the suburbs, went to a very conservative Christian church. And I remember even in high school, this is embarrassing to say in the 90s, but like, I didn't like know anybody who was gay in my mind. And so I actually really thought that I didn't even know that was something that people could be and be normal or something like that. I thought it was like a condition or something like that. And it's absurd to believe that, but I literally didn't know anyone. And it wasn't until I went to college and became friends with people who were gay and heard their stories. I had a close friend in my fraternity who fought being gay for years, even conversion therapy and things like that. And I saw his battle until he ultimately relented and said who he is, and the freedom that came from that, but also the pain and the losses that came from that. And it wasn't until just walking through them that I came to understand and change my views around a whole lot of things, but beginning with that. But it's really not until you can connect and see somebody as a person and believe them and trust their accounts of what they're experiencing, and just recognize that just because it's not the way I feel doesn't mean there's anything wrong or different from it. Or it's maybe I'm the weird one. Maybe I have them all. I'm the one talking backwards. Who am I judging?
Hey, we're all the weird ones, right? Underneath. I think that's why I think I loved when you were talking about like introducing yourself, like, who are you? I'm a dad first. So much of the responsibility, I think, of adult populations, right? No matter across the globe, right? Is to really foster, and I guess what we do societally is enculturate our children with our own belief systems. But I love the fact that when you're engaged in community where there is difference and there's a supportive understanding around not exploitative differences, but engaging across the aisle, whether it's political or religiously or across identities, right? We have this opportunity to expose our children to people who are different than us and in loving, safe places. And I think that is something that doesn't always happen when anthropologically, like, we are not all raised in places where it's not homogeneous communities, right? So we do have this responsibility to say, you know what, I'm going to immerse you into an experience that might feel uncomfortable at first, but it's going to be to your benefit, and then help walk alongside of them and teach them, right? That loving someone, or when they are afraid of someone, that the stereotypes that they're going to be reinforced societally are, to accost those things and to interrogate those things. I can remember with my own son, I have two kids. My older Sage, my son, is almost 13. When he was probably 2 years old, maybe 2.5, we were traveling on a road trip, and we stopped at like a McDonald's or something, and we're getting out of the car, and there was a man outside smoking. And, when you're raising kids, we've said probably like, oh, smoke, we don't do this or this. Smoking hurts your body. And, when you're 2 and you hear and you see someone that you just think is bad, I'm like, he should be a lawyer because he's still so black and white. But that moment where he saw this man really, in close proximity, who was just a nice retired gentleman probably out there, like, I'm having a smoke break. He was so afraid that there have been 5-10 different moments throughout his life where he has interacted with someone who was smoking and had to really, the anxiety within him, just like, he had to really talk it down. And I've had to do that even when he, 10, 11 years old, and I've had to help him walk it down.
It's like he just saw someone rob a bank.
Yes, it's like, oh my gosh, the person is smoking. I'm like, oh gosh, what did we do? But I do think we have, like, the whole thing around empathy and understanding. Like, those things are not just naturally like part of our story, right? We have to work at those things. We have to work at saying, we're all different. And those differences are beautiful differences. Some of the choices that we make, maybe those are not inherent beauties, but those are choices that people make. That doesn't mean that their choices, they're making those to hurt you or harm you. Sometimes the impact of people's choices do, but it's trying to love the person and love someone just because they're inherently God's child. They are inherently a human being who is worthy of love.
That's right. And people are complicated.
People are complicated.
People have histories and their lived experiences that shape them. And it's not all one thing or the other. It drives me crazy. Like you have groups that think that cops are all awesome or cops are terrible. And,
oh gosh.
And in reality, maybe all cops are both, they can be heroic. They can be selfless. They also can be violent and be too quick to judge and act on that. So those are really serious things that like color all of us though.
Yeah.
I'm not all good or bad.
Yeah.
I have all sorts of things about me and things that I've done that I wish I could take back,
Right.
but also things that I'm proud of and trying to get better. So if I hope that other people have grace for me, maybe I should consider extending that to others. You know, I mean, I'm telling that to myself as we speak, because it's something that I'm not always great at.
Yeah.
I have a little sage in me, a little sage smoking in me,
right?
Where it's like nope, you think this, goodbye,
we're done, right? That like, superhero, the good and evil fight. I think that is part of the human condition, right? In ways that we are beloved, and we are full of so much possibility to love and transform the world for good. But we also have these open opportunities, these invitations, right, to make decisions that sometimes reify the biases around us, right? That self-preservation is number one, right? The altruism maybe isn't quite, over the 50%. And so we're still stuck in our reptilian brains. But I do think when you think of kind of the current context that we're living in and the polarized world and so much disparity, we have this deep responsibility to at least do the work that helps us continue to like rage less and empathy more, right? And those, I think, when every single day when you're caught in the news cycle and you're caught in real devastation and economic disparities that lead those marginalized to have more and more disruptive, right, desecration around their livelihoods, right? I mean, it's so much, it's hard to even describe it, right? Oppression and how it can be really hard to not for rage or for the anger we feel about the situations surrounding us that should not be, right? When someone could do things to change others' outcomes. It's the helplessness sometimes we're left with kind of this poverty of imagination, and like the feelings are anger and more anger or rage and judgment. We have to work really hard to make sure that we have generative spirits so that we can move from these places of, it really upsets me and it's so awful and wrong. If I'm stuck and paralyzed in that place, I'm not going to do anyone any good.
Yeah. And it's a hard headspace to get into, but like if there is a silver lining, I really feel in my personal life, like the times when the things that I thought were important were most in peril, or most taken from me. To time and again, those have been the most spiritually rewarding journeys I've been through. I think I lost my sister. She was 15 when she died in a sudden car accident in 2004.
That's Kayla.
Yeah. Thank you for knowing. But like the most miraculous thing I've ever experienced, the closest thing I've ever experienced to a miracle happened in the day that followed.
Wow.
And I'm happy to talk about it if we want to.
Yeah,
but,
no, I know everyone would
open.
love to hear it. I mean,
but
loss transforms our lives.
Yeah, but if that's true individually, it can be true nationally. And that doesn't necessarily mean winning in the sense that we want to win.
Right.
It can be a rejuvenation. It can be a spiritual turn that we can take.
Right.
Going back to the sister story, I promise I can tell this in like 2 minutes.
Yeah, please.
So, it's awesome for me to just think about Kayla and because
sounds like she was an amazing sister and person in the world.
She was awesome. She was 15. She was a sophomore at Elkhorn High School. So on her 15th birthday, I created for her a scavenger hunt.
Oh, cool.
That was going to take her all over the house, clues running all around the house. To deliver her what was her birthday gift, which was a cell phone, which back then was a really big deal to get like a flip phone.
Totally.
I think it texted. I don't know if it did more than that. It probably had like Tetris. That's about it. So, running all over. Capture this on the video. It's actually on YouTube. We uploaded. And the final clue was she dialed a number and the phone started ringing from inside my pocket.
Oh, wow.
Which it had been there all along. And the final clue said, use this phone to call your brother. So she died in a car accident at about 222nd and Center on her way home from a group called Youth for Christ. A friend ran a stop sign and she was hit, and my sister and another little boy were killed in the accident. So I went back to the site of her accident the next day. Just wanted to physically be where she was when she was tossed from the car, and was there with my then fiance and my best friend. And we were just praying because I was just lost. I had basically like a cartoonish faith, and up to that point, and I had never really had to grapple with things like heaven or grapple with things like what happens when we die. But in that moment, it was so important to me as a big brother to Kayla. Where is she? It just helped me believe, helped me know that she's here. Like I remember praying to God that I don't need to be saved from pain. Like pain happens, this is an imperfect world, but that's not what I'm asking for. But can you please give me, some knowledge that she's okay. And as I was getting ready to go, just heard this kind of faint humming and kind of looking around, and it started and stopped pretty quickly and then started again. And I'm looking around and I'm like, is that Scott, is that your phone? Or Emily, is that your phone? No, it's not. So I start looking around and we realize it's none of our phones. And it stops, high brush. There's no houses out there at the time. It's just kind of like farmland.
Wow.
And so I'm basically just kind of frantically searching as I'm hearing it ring again. And finally on the fourth ring, I fall to my knees. I'm pulling up like these weeds and I find a phone and open it, and it's Kayla's phone.
Oh my gosh.
And, and nobody I called it, and I looked at the call history. Nobody had called it before. Nobody called it later that night. It was friends of hers that all just wanted to hear her voice in that moment. They said they just felt like they wanted to hear her voice.
Oh, wow.
And they called right while I was standing there praying for a sign. So the final clue on her birthday, use this phone to call your brother, was the phone that I found when I was praying for a sign of her life. So I kind of decided then and there that there's so much I don't understand. And it's really hard for me. Like I'm somebody who really doesn't like believing big things without knowing they're true.
Yeah.
But I felt like that was as good as I could have asked for. So I wasn't going to go back. And I think, so not to say that I haven't had missteps since then, because I have, but I decided then that I wasn't going to change my mind about God's goodness and love for me.
Well, and more than that, that love and that connection, you have, poured it out into the world. I mean, one thing that you can do has turned into 1,000 more. I mean, asking a question about what can I do is the first step in transforming, I think, pain, right? And transforming loss and grief. And when you ask those questions, we're pretty certain that the door is open.
Yeah.
Right? When you want to make change, like God, make me an instrument of your peace, that continued prayer, that there's always going to be an opportunity to take a faithful step forward to love or show love to someone else. And you continually do that in your life. And I think that's one of the reasons I think profound leadership is really rooted in servanthood and humility. And these are times that we are living in where it's imperative that the leaders in us, stand forward. And every single person has the opportunity to transform the ripple effect. Like one act of love or generosity really helps change the world. I mean, that's one step at a time.
Yeah. Thanks for saying that. Like I used to think, so one other tidbit, like I was with Kayla when she died. And I told her before she died that I would try to honor her life with mine. And for a long time, I thought that meant doing something great, like that other people thought would be great. So I was a student president at Lincoln. I was president of some other groups. I was, I worked in Washington for a time, and I really thought maybe I'll be a senator. Maybe I'll be the president someday. And I really feel like as my life has unfolded, I feel like I've honored my promise to her, but in more human ways. Like maybe it's not being great in a public way. Maybe it's being the best dad I can be. Maybe it's calling a friend when I know they're struggling, and just making time and space for that. So it's maybe a little bit of a cop-out, but I have always, I've taken some peace in believing I fulfilled my promise to her, but just in ways that were different from what I originally intended.
Well, and I mean, when you're younger, right, we have one understanding of what it means to be great. And then you have these beautiful children who remind you that just dressing up silly on Halloween, right? Like you're their superhero. And also that they are the generation who need to see modeled that moments matter, right? Greatness is not this sort of esteemed career path. Greatness starts when you listen to someone, especially Nina and Poppy, right? Who need to know that their dad is there every day when they have a question. Like, where is God? I remember all the questions that my children would, you know, I always think for my kids have being PKs, because it's, well, you hear your mom, right? It's like the Peanuts thing. And then, of course, they're also at home. So, you know, asking questions. But when my kids were little, especially my oldest, he's very verbose like his mother, right? He would talk. We would lay in bed, and it was just all night long. He'd look up at the stars. But he would ask me these deep questions. He was like 3 and 4 years old, right? 5. Mom, where is God? Who is God? What, you know, why is there a God? All the things that you have no idea how to answer, right? Mm-hmm. And I think it was sort of the moments that you pause and listen and say, you know, what do you think? Right? That I learned so much more about all the things that I have been deeply, you know, thinking about theologically for many years. Yeah. And you hear these children and their thoughts and how they already know God. They're coming from love and from God. And so they have so much to teach us about this. That's the most important thing that we can be, right? Those of us who are parents, who have children that we are influencing any children in our lives, grandparents, sisters, aunts, uncles, it's the opportunity to say that we can do better, right? Dare to imagine that there's a better way than what you're seeing. Dare to imagine that you can make a difference, that your love matters.
What a gift that you allow them to, your kids or Sage in this conversation, to just sort of sit in the mystery and sit in the wonder. Like, I feel like we do some harm when we speak with certainty about things that are really difficult to know with certainty. And then as kids grow up, maybe that doesn't really jive with what they're experiencing or what the truth is telling them. And then you kind of feel stuck in this box. Do I either stay in the box of the certainty that you put me in, or do I break out in a way that scraps everything and hits reset? And I think that it takes some humility, and it takes some, I don't know, an inner peace, but that's a really great thing, I think, to give our kids. And I'm trying to model that with our girls too. There are some questions that I'll just tell them, some people think this, some people think that, and here's where I am. And sometimes that's a hard, I don't know. And sometimes the bigger the question, the less I know. Right. And that's really kind of hard as a dad when they're searching too, and they're looking up to me. It's like, you understood long division. Why don't you understand how was God created? Exactly.
Yeah, that's the biggest one.
But
well, who created God then? Oh, you know what? It is time for your bed.
So
I think
late.
In your prayers, God is going to be right there with you. But it is, I think that the beautiful sort of complexities and the ambiguity about some of these big paradoxical things that we talk about in life, that is right where God is. You know, I love to talk about the messy middle. That's kind of my go-to. It's so often we're reaching, right? Gnosis, like knowledge. We're reaching for knowledge. And, you know, the Greeks did it. I mean, we've all been philosophically smarter than we really are, right? Every generation and every societal community who's forging ahead always thinks that we know more than the last. But so much of like the unraveling of what we know leads us to real sort of deep, I wouldn't say truth, but real meaning. Yeah. And that's sort of that sweet spot of, you know, these are some of the things that I think I know. And, you know, you want to give, especially for kids, right? It's so important that there is some stability around these questions, right? But then they know that the adults don't know, or else the world would be a better place, right? That we would have peace, right? So I think it's this deep humility, and also that spirit with and within us when we have this courage to say, well, these are the things I think, but these are the things I really wonder. Yeah. And I know that God meets us in our wondering. Yeah. And I think it's also, for me, it's been this, as I grow older, right, in our 43, 44-year-old wisdom, right, is that there's a deeper sense of honesty in your own self when you, and it's this deeper sense of peace when you don't try so hard to know all the things. Yeah. It's like, oh, wow, it's so much more filling and fulfilling, right? To allow the wisdom that is imprinting on us, the wisdom that we're surrounded by all these amazing people, but also just the wisdom of the earth and the stories and the traditions and time itself, right? God is in and through all of it. And you have to also, I think, be able to trust, especially as people of faith, you have to trust in the God, right, of time and the ancient wisdom, and that God is before and after and through it all, right? I think that's a sort of one of those difficult but courageous things to let go a little bit with these beloved children, whether it's parishioners, you know, in a community, or friends, or our own children, that God really is meeting us in all of this. Yeah. And we are just bearing witness to, right? And here, hopefully, to open the doors and walk through the doors. But God is with and within us, right? Helping us build and co-create the village.
I'm so thankful for God's patience and on the journey. Like I was listening to a podcast a couple of years ago, and they were interviewing somebody who was 91.
Oh, wow.
Escapes me right now. And they were talking about a near-death experience he had at 84.
Wow.
So he almost died at 84 and lived to telling about it at 91. He says, I'm so glad I didn't die then, because I've grown so much since then.
Wow.
And that really struck me, that this man who was 84, and those 7 years were really meaningful to him and his journey. And that's true in my life. I'm very different than I was at 35, thank goodness. And that person was different from when I was 28 and 19. And I hope that I'm becoming a better version of myself, but it takes time and it takes patience. So there's plenty of things I look back on and I would do differently now, but I try to be graceful to myself, and I appreciate when people offer it to me.
Of course. Well, Ryan, you've been such a great leader. And I use that word, I think, in a really intentional way, right? Someone who a little bit lost, and then I want to do better. And then leading is that humility, altering your path and saying, wait a minute, there's more to learn. That's leading, right? When you're always looking for how to learn and listen to people. I know that people who are listening today and people who know you, and maybe those who don't, would love to hear any sort of like last words of wisdom. You know, if people are looking for ways to engage, right, maybe in our political uncertainty and how to join the action or how to be a part of, you know, resistance and joy, anything that you would like to leave us with as we think about the importance of belonging, community, and how to weave together some sort of hope, right, and collective action or collective joy.
Yeah. I was thinking about that on my way here, and I wish I were better. Like I what I can say is, in my experience, you know, disappointment is kind of like the chasm between our expectations and what we're experiencing. Mm-hmm. And if we put our hope in things that are outside our control, I think we're going to be disappointed. Yeah. I don't think right now, in terms of political leadership and trends, I don't think that's a safe place to put your hope.
Yeah.
If I'm being totally honest, it doesn't mean that it's a lost cause. It doesn't mean that it's over.
Right.
It just means that that's not a stable, smart place to place our hope.
Yeah.
But I can also say that things are not always exactly as we think they are. In my life, the way I would have drawn it up would be very different and worse than it is now. And I think that's true of us nationally and collectively too. There have been so many times in our history that really were dark, where people were in worse situations than we are now, with fewer resources, fewer reasons for hope, and still achieved great things. From the abolition of slavery to the end of the Jim Crow era, civil rights movement, women's suffrage. There were plenty of times where that did not seem like a good place to put your hope, but still great things could come from it. So there's some hope in randomness. There's hope in the tides changing, and there's always hope in the places where we know they're safe to place it. You know, like it's just in the human connection, whether that is through your church, within your family. Those are things that right now there's no reason to believe that can be taken from you. So if you just choose grace and you choose to give people the benefit of the doubt, I think I have found hope even across political lines when I choose to see somebody as a person who's complicated, who may agree with me on some things and diverge from me in other things, rather than being consumed by a label that is different from the one I put on myself. Yeah. It's not easy. I struggle with it mightily myself, to the point where I think long-term, you know, like what is the worst that can happen? And if it does, what does that mean for me and my family? Like, will we stay here? What are other options? I don't know if that's a good place to put your hope either. Yeah. But for us, at least, when we feel especially scared and cornered in terms of where things are and where we feel like things are going, it has been a good outlet for us to, at least as a thought experiment, like talk about that and feel like you have some empowerment over the things that feel like are outside our control and changing in ways that are painful and scary.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think it's a really good, almost spiritual exercise, right? To imagine that hope, we have agency over where you place your hope. And maybe turning off the news sometimes, maybe letting go of the urgency to need to fix something right now, and finding these abiding places, human connection with family. And then also, what is, I think everybody has their own dilemmas or choices, right? Everybody has a different context, every family, every individual. So hope looks different for everyone. And what people are experiencing, and what choices everyone has available to them, and sort of make sure that you know what yours looks like and who your people are. And, if all else fails, see the cookie flag across the street and know that, even across difference, even when we think that we are so far gone, there is always, one more opportunity to come to the table together and see each other as human first. And hope, I think if we lose hope in the human condition to choose, goodness, then we really might not be who we really say that we are. I think of Margaret Wheatley, and one of my favorite books that she's written is Who Do We Choose to Be? And, she continually asks leaders to create islands of sanity. I don't know if you've read Margaret Wheatley, but Leadership in the New Science is one of her most well-known books. Sociologist, lawyer, activist, writer, teacher. She's just one of those people who, for me, has reminded me that in hopelessness, we decide what is loss and the challenge of the shared human condition taught us over time. And we as a human species are evolving. And some of the epigenetics of that evolution, right? Psychologically, spiritually, leaves with each one of us from past generations the opportunity to gain all of that up, right? And kind of wear it, and then still choose to create shared islands of sanity. So if you haven't read Margaret Wheatley, I'm actually preaching on Margaret Wheatley this Sunday.
Awesome.
But if you haven't read about Margaret Wheatley, or if you don't yourself know in hopelessness where you would stake your flag, I think that is sort of the sacred challenge for each of us, because the work is still yet before us. And goodness is the collective wisdom and the collective love that we share. If we have not that collective love, we're kind of not the humans that I think our amazing God created us to be. So
thank you for that. I'll look forward to learning more on Sunday.
Yeah, Margaret Wheatley. Well, Ryan Wilkins, you all. What a great, fun conversation. You have to say a word backwards for us.
Oh, you bet.
Okay, so let's just see. The peanut gallery. What kind of word out there, Dan? How about
the village at Countryside?
The village at Countryside.
Isidir Nuok ta egelav et. And I think that's 26 letters. That's the other stupid human trick, is quickly counting letters.
I just don't know if I can even, how in the world? Okay, that blew my mind beyond all reason. So now, all of your family's names backwards.
Okay, so that'd be Anin, Yipop, Yenej, Jenny, Poppy, Nina. 13 letters.
Okay, and Jennifer Schultz Thomas.
Jennifer Schultz Thomas is Samot Ztlux Refanej.
Okay, before my mind is completely out of here, I can't even breathe. How do you do that? Obviously, if you could explain it and I could just do it, it wouldn't matter, but there's no way.
I usually tell people jokingly, well, ever since I got struck by lightning. No, but it was, so at my first and last date with Sarah Carroll in 7th grade, we were at a movie theater, and it was pretty packed, and the credits were rolling down. Okay. And I was nervous.
7th grade.
Because my mom had dropped us off at the mall and was picking me up soon. Didn't know how to talk to girls. We had just finished the movie, so now I have to talk. So naturally, as the credits roll down, do you know Brad Pitt backwards is to tip darb? And George Clooney, Yanul Kegrog.
And you were saying this to your girl?
I just sort of, that was it, because that seemed like what a guy should do on a date for some reason. And I realized I didn't have to look at the letters or the names to do it. I just could sort of see it and say, you could see village and say egg, struggle through it, but you gotta live.
Yeah. Okay.
So basically I can kind of see it, and I just.
Do you just do it all? Does your brain do it now when you see words a lot?
Yeah. I honestly, this doesn't come up as much as it used to. It used to be that was all people knew about me.
Sorry.
So, no,
There's
it's okay.
more to know about Ryan than just.
It's completely fine. I own it. So now it's mostly just Facebook birthdays.
Okay.
I'll say. Yinish Yadtrib Yipa for happy birthday, Jenny.
Wow. Okay. A skill I never knew I needed, but I have sat in an awkward 7th grade date, and the guy I was with didn't do that. So you know what? I think he's gone to something, you guys. Well, friends, it takes a village, as we know. It takes a village to speak backwards. It takes a village to show love and humanity and put our best foot forward. But really, I think this conversation is just a good reminder to us that, start with who you are and what you have and your own realm of influence. You don't have to all work in Washington or be the student body president or all the things. But as Ryan is talking about, so much of how we live life is shaped by the experiences that we were given and how we respond to those. So hope is not lost, but the world is a difficult place. So let us go to the arcade. Joy is a form of resistance. Find your people and know that you belong here. It takes a village, and you're always welcome at Countryside on the Tri-Faith Commons. I'm Jenny Schultz-Thomas. Thank you so much, Ryan Wilkins, for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
Till next time.